I am finally back. It's been quite a while, I will admit, but I finally had some free time and I wanted to sit down and look through the massive backlog of footage I've captured over the last 2 months. There's a huge variety of games in there, early access stuff, beta stuff, alpha stuff, released stuff. It's a mess. There's so many things I've played, and then I just haven't had time to sit down and really make a video talking about them. So I wanted to play a bit of catch up today. I actually just got back from PAX East. That was great to go to again with my buddy Tony, also Tony. We went and had an amazing time. I actually spent a lot of time around the indie booth area like we usually do, played a lot of great stuff. Some of that's actually going to be out before I have any chance to talk about it as I saw it at PAX. So we'll probably just talk about those games as I play them and hopefully have time to talk about them. One I'm very excited for, which is coming out today as I'm recording this, is Curse of the Dead Gods. If you've never heard it, go look it up. If you like Hades, if you like Supergiant, games like roguelites, I think you're going to like what the team is doing over there. But today I want to talk about something I've wanted to talk about since I played it several weeks ago. Maybe it's even been a month at this point. I don't really remember. In its closed beta, just for its multiplayer component, and that is Disintegration. Disintegration is a new game being developed by a new studio made up of industry vets called V1 Interactive. V1 is actually headed by Marcus Leto, the father of Master Chief. They showed off Disintegration a while back, and I immediately was like, this is different. I fucking love this. You're doing single player. Oh, wait, you're going to do multiplayer too. I want to know more about this. I want to go hands-on with this. For all intents and purposes, Disintegration is an FPS RTS hybrid. It's a meshing of those two genres. But I would say rather than the typical meshing that I think many of us have become accustomed to, usually you'll see a game, it's like single player and it's mostly an RTS, but then they let you take control of one unit and suddenly it's a first-person shooter. This isn't that. This is like, no, how do we actually take those two gameplay concepts and make something new and different with them? How do we delicately weave them together to create something where we preserve the best of both worlds and we don't really make something where it feels like one is being sacrificed in terms of its quality and fun factor just so it can exist inside of or within the other one? This feels really good in a way that no other FPS RTS hybrid I've ever played ever has. And I think that's because it's really just an FPS game with strong RTS components that are so beautifully woven in to the first-person player experience that you will initially notice them because you won't know how to manage them all. But then as you play the game and you start to get understanding for it, which I think when I first jumped into the closed beta took me maybe about an hour. I would say the tutorial did a good job of like making those basic introductions. But once you were in a game with other players and there's a little bit of panic, it was like, oh, okay, wait, I got to figure this all out. What can I attack? Who do I attack? How do I do it? Once those things start to come together, this was one of the most satisfying experiences I've ever had in gaming. Whether it was the tutorial or the PvP stuff, it was just like, damn, when this all starts to click and you execute like a sequence of decisions perfectly, and those decisions lead to the death of one or maybe even many other grav cycle pilots and the preservation of your grav cycle and your crew, which you then in turn use to capture one of the points in the zone control mode, it's like chef's kiss. Oh man, that was so good. The movement in the game is also very deliberate. There's just a lot of good stuff going on here, and I want to talk more about it. Before we do that, let's lay sort of a baseline for what the hell is going on in this game so you have a rough understanding. Now, there is a whole big story that's going to be happening in the single player. We're not going to talk too much about that. What you need to know is that you are a grav cycle pilot. Grav cycles are these things that fly in the air. They don't have like an infinite flight height. They can't fly over, air, I guess you can't say. They're not planes, right? They have to have a certain amount of surface at a certain distance underneath them to function. And so you won't just be like floating in the air. You're very much using gravity to hover around the battlefield from a more advantageous position because you are the leader of a squad. That squad, the rest of that squad anyway, is down on the ground, boots on the ground, following your command. You can actually guide them around the battlefield with your right mouse click. They also have their own set of abilities and sort of roles on the battlefield, right? Some are more tanky than others. Some might be coming with a slow field or a concussion grenade, which you can use against other crews as well as other grav cycle pilots. That's the sort of crux of Disintegration. You need that crew to capture points like the points you're seeing here in zone control. You also need that crew because they could put out a lot of damage, and they come with a lot of utility that might help you eliminate an enemy grab cycle and their crew in a situation where you might not have otherwise been to had your crew been dead and on respawn. So managing all of these things is very important. Yes, you can go in and start to lay waste with your primary and your secondary weapons on whatever grab cycle you decide to pilot, but having that crew alive and well and in your hopefully capable hands is definitely going to make a difference. And that's where all of that micromanagement comes into play. Again, like I said at the start of the game, the first hour, it feels rough, it feels jank, but as it starts to connect and you start to, meld all of those decisions together into one seamless, execution, it feels so good. And I was unbelievably impressed with how well the crew actually worked. I think when you think about a game where you're floating around in first person on a freaking grab cycle, you expect that crew to have a lot of issues. You expect them to get snagged on things, to not follow your commands. I imagine that was a very important thing for V1 to be like, listen, if we're going to do this thing where you're constantly controlling these ground units, they need to follow you pretty much on their own when you're not commanding them. They need to be smart, they need to be quick, and they need to feel like they're making decisions instantaneously based on your commands. And that is exactly how it functions. You tell them where to go, they go there. You tell them to use an ability, you get a little, effective field that pops up, you cast that, boom, they go and do that thing. If you want to send them to their immediate demise when you engage in a firefight with another grab cycle pilot, you can absolutely do that, and they will. They'll die. You can swoop in, pick up their skulls to get their respawn going a little bit quicker, or you can just leave them there and get the hell out of Dodge. The most important thing through all of that, though, is that they just work, and I deeply appreciate how well they work. That, I think, is a huge part of what makes this whole thing so successful and what makes it feel less like a meshing of two genres and more, like I said, a delicate weaving of these two things to create something that feels very new and decidedly fresh in a time and place where it's getting harder and harder to make something that genuinely feels fresh. That's one of the huge things I really love about this game. Now, when it comes to the overall sort of pacing of Disintegration, as we experienced it here in the multiplayer, it's definitely a very deliberate game. You don't move very quickly. Different grab cycles have sort of different weight classes and health classes, movement speed, but everyone gets one dash. And that one dash has a pretty slow cooldown. So you're not going to just be ripping about the place, constantly side dashing, using dashes to 80-80 strafe. This is about making, again, very deliberate movements, putting yourself in a position where you have as much advantage and as little disadvantage. And when you do put yourself in a really bad place, you will most likely be punished for it by another grab cycle pilot or another group of grab cycle pilots who caught you out. And they're like, oh, look at this guy, used his dash to get in here. Now he's floating in the middle of our airspace. We've got cover. He doesn't. I'm going to pop a slow field on him. And then, Sarah over there is going to go ahead and nuke his face. And it's going to be donezo. And that's the satisfying part of this game, though, is knowing that any wrong movement could put you in a position where you then have to try and make some sort of very elaborate and risky escape. And when you're successful in baiting someone out and crushing their crew and then using your crew to further eliminate them, God, it just feels good, man. There is a huge pool of different grab cycle crews. Again, grab cycles are different. Your primary and secondary weapons on the grab cycle are going to be different, and your crew is going to be slightly different. They're going to have different abilities. They're going to have, sort of different health pools, different roles, if you will, while they're boots on the ground on the battlefield. I think the full release is looking for 9, and I believe there were 7 in the beta. Don't quote me on that, but there's a lot of variety here. You've got the grab cycle you're seeing me pilot right now. We've got these big burst Spitfire cannons, very much a damage-focused grab cycle. These Yuri rockets are absolutely bonkers, even up against something big and tanky like that Spiky Boy over there, which has an insane nuke secondary fire. You can do so much damage. So being aggressive with this grab cycle without any real plan for how you're going to dodge the inevitable burst or volley of Yuri rockets is not a good idea. And it's also very good at taking out squishies like Stevie W, which I think I drop him a few times in here. There are also several support grab cycles, though, one of which is used to heal other grab cycles directly, and another of which is used to heal crew on the ground. So you can really decide on how you want to play the game, the sort of role you want to have. Obviously, in the time that the closed and open beta took place, it wasn't enough for people to start developing a meta on what they're running. I only ever really played with one other person. This is something I would absolutely love to play with a squad. sort of on that higher skill end where people are really communicating. We're running different pilot combinations, trying to get the best of everything to make our team as survivable and as effective as possible. I could really see this game getting like more tense than it already was. And I think that's one of the things that I enjoyed about it so much is when I play a competitive game like this with an objective-based mode and I'm playing it alone or with like one other friend, I don't typically expect it to be a great time. I expect there to be a lot of things that don't work that well because we don't have full squad communication. But just the core loop here is so satisfying and so rewarding when you just execute things well and you make smart decisions that I didn't even really care when we were losing. And we had a few matches where things just didn't go our way. I was just kind of like, it's okay. I'm over here learning. Like, I'm over here having a good time. It's just all in all a really well put together experience. The polish on this beta was super impressive. The audio design. Jack, if you're watching this video, you did an amazing job. Again, you and the whole team, dude. Like, oh, God, it's just... There's so many little audio cues and bits that just are already like resonating in my brain. And I think they just did an amazing job. There's some really satisfying bits, I think, with like the power attacks in the game, and the visual effects team like killed it, man. You've got this really cool like sense of perspective, sense of scale that goes on, because it's not just you in the grav cycle and then like the world perspective. You've got those units on the ground. So when you see units on the ground right below an enemy grav cycle and you like detonate a burst of Yuri rockets and you just see those air explosions, the fire turns to smoke, turns to dust and particles, and then you see like the sense of scale. It comes together to create a perspective that you just don't normally get to see. It really is that middle ground between playing an FPS or playing an RTS and then having like actual first person scale and presence in that RTS at the same time. Like, you're getting that here, and it's just done absurdly well. I'm really excited to see more environments. I know that their big focus with multiplayer is to make sure that maps are tuned to certain game modes, which I think is a great thing, especially in a game that has a lot of like, strategy elements to it. I just can't wait to play more of this. And I think the thing that is most surprising is that I can't wait to play more of the multiplayer. I'm super stoked that the single player is going to be there. That's what they originally sold me on. I'm really happy about the game having both of those things, because I think there's a good chance this multiplayer won't stick forever, right? It's probably not going to have a huge community. This is something very different, a little bit more niche, which is totally fine. I love that. I love those sorts of games. And I like that it'll probably have a nice little multiplayer community following for a while. But when that fades away, the single player will still be there. If it becomes something that we all love and remember, we can all go back and be like, dude, you got to play Disintegration. Like, oh, it's on sale, 2 years after release, whatever. It's on sale. You should totally check it out. Single player is fantastic. Still a few people playing multiplayer. Definitely worth picking up. Like, that's a nice thing to have. I think that's one of the hardest things about seeing small dev teams try and publish big AAA style multiplayer games, especially in one of the most competitive genres, is that when it doesn't go well, that's it. People might talk about it, remember it. Like, I'll never forget Radical Heights or Lawbreakers, but you can't play it. It's gone. That's sad. You'll be able to play Disintegration down the line, and that just, I don't know, this just makes me happy, because a lot of the games I love tend to fade away much more quickly than I think they ever deserve to. So, Disintegration, keep your eyes on this one, folks. Whether you're going to be interested in it for the single player or for the multiplayer, for both, this is the team doing something that feels fresh and feels freaking fantastic. I think that's the most important thing, right? Like, great, the idea of like originality and doing something new is fantastic, but when it's done well and it actually feels like it's providing you with an experience that you just can't get anywhere else, that's the cup of tea. That's when it's like, hell yeah, this is an awesome little thing, and I can't wait to play more of it. No release date yet, 2020. I know the team's still toiling away on it. I'm sure when they've got a date, they'll give it to us, but keep your eyes on it. I hope that they do some more beta stuff for the multiplayer in the future. I'd love to have another go at this. That's why I waited like 30 minutes in line to play it at PAX East last week, because I just wanted to play it again. Definitely one to keep your eyes on. If you had a chance to play in the closed door open beta, I'd love to hear your thoughts on the game, what you thought of it, what you thought of their sort of melding of the FPS and the RTS. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you around.